Well, good morning. I'm hoping I'm live on YouTube. It looks like I am. And I'm hoping that I found a way to pull comments into the screen that I'm looking at. Crossing my fingers. Hello and welcome. It looks like there's a number of people already joining in. Oh my goodness, I actually hooked it up to the right live stream. I had set up this link so that I could put this link out there for everyone, and I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to make the software that I'm broadcasting through hook up to the actual page. So do me a favor and leave a comment, because I'd like to see if the chat actually moves, because all I see is the link to the reference photo. Watching from London, yes. I see one person in chat. Yay! Things seem to be working. So I am tickled about that. It's a good thing. Today we're going to be doing watercolor. If you would like to watercolor along with me, the photo reference is the first comment in chat. And I'm hoping that if you join later, you can still see the earlier comments with any luck. So hello, Judy. Looks like things look good there. That's yay! I'm seeing things pop in. I don't know how much lag there is, but we shall see how that goes. I do have a little yellow warning icon. What does the warning icon say? It says the stream is something. It's not telling me. It's just like the street, STERA ... and is not actually telling me anything helpful. So I'm going to ignore the yellow flashing light. And I'll worry about that later. So today we are going to be painting these flowers. And I know this was not the top photo selected in the poll. I'm sorry. But the tulips that I had put in there in the poll was the one that I was the dodgiest about. And I thought, oh, people had been asking me to paint multiple flowers. How do you paint a group of flowers, like a garden or a flower basket or something? So I thought everybody was going to choose that. And y'all chose the tulips, which were going to be the hardest thing. So we are not going to be able to paint the tulips today. Maybe at some point I'll bring you a painting of those tulips here on the channel, but I need some more practice before I do that. So I chose this painting because I knew I could simplify it from the reference and therefore get this done in an hour, because I don't want to be here all day, because you have things to do. It's a Saturday and we have stuff going on, right? So let us look at the photo versus the final painting. You can see in the picture, which hopefully is right there on your screen, that I've made the window into a basic rectangle, so we can still have the feeling that we're looking outside a window and we've got the light coming in, but without having all of that perspective in the window. I just thought that would be a little bit much to paint today, as well as show you that you can simplify a painting. You don't actually have to paint everything that's in it just because it's there. And my recommendation is paint the things that you can. Now, if you want to learn how to paint a window behind a picture like this, I would recommend learning how to paint the window by itself first, and then paint the flowers by themselves. Then you can put the two of them together, because you'll know what you're doing. Usually we just end up having a little freak out mode when we try to do something that we're not quite fully prepared for. So if you're going to paint along with me, raise your hand in chat. And good morning to everybody who's saying where you're from. We have people from California, Texas, another California, another Northern California, Maine, Kansas, Melbourne, Florida, Sweden. What else do we have here? New Mexico, Southern Colorado. Yay! Washington here representing. I know that there are a bunch of followers here on Sandy Paints who are from Washington, because when I first started this channel, you guys were telling me you were amazed. You never knew I existed. So I hope some of you in Washington are here too. So if you want to paint along with me, the sketch that I've created is in the posts on my page. But what I did was, you know, sketch out the minimalness, the limited lines that I did here. You can see I don't draw out every flower, because that doesn't leave me any room for my brush to just kind of have fun. So I have that in there, and then I have the border of the window and the table, and that's it. Kept it really simple. And if you don't have the colors that I'll be using, you are most welcome to use whatever colors you wish to use. So I'm going to do this in an order that I put on Substack. There's a Substack post that has the link to this video in it, if you're a Substack subscriber. And in that, you know, I'm going to turn these lights on here. These lights blow me out as a person here on video, but they do help me to see my paper better. So I put the steps, like a step-by-step photo tutorial as well on Substack. So if you learn better from something like that, then please feel free to try that out. But those are from the practice painting, and I had an error in the practice painting. I had a drip out here, and I tried to cover it. So I tried to make an extra thing. I had another drip here that I didn't quite cover. So I tried to make an extra bit of kind of architectural structure here. You don't have to do that. You can. We're going to try to not make that mistake again, so I can leave it with just one coat of paint there. So we're going to start with the background. And I'm using Cobalt Teal Blue for my sky color. You can use any blue that you like for skies. This is not actually remotely the color that's in the sky in the picture. But I'm going to throw some blue in here and just kind of let it move around. Put in a little more blue over here. And then I want the green to kind of merge in with the blue. So I'm going to actually add yellow into the blue. Those colors will then blend really well together. And some of it I'm going to get a little bit darker too. And yesterday, by the way, I had another live stream. If you missed that one, it was doing some jelly printing. And that one is on Substack. So what I'm basically doing is painting around the flowers, if you can't tell. I'm just putting the background in and letting the, excuse me, the edges of the bouquet end up getting, talking and painting same time, not always the easiest thing to do. Letting the edges of the bouquet get lacy by using the brush to create those lacy edges. This is why I don't do any of my video voiceovers first thing in the morning. It takes my voice a while to wake up. Now, if you decide you're going to put something like a window around an element like this, I mean, you can put any object in a windowsill and add a window to it rather than just putting a plain background in. But think about where you're adding that window. You want to put the shapes in a place where you can easily access them. So I made it so that the window ends right here, so I only have one piece This is going to be still flowers that go over here. Otherwise, I would have to be painting that in too. And sometimes it's just not so helpful to be trying to work in little fussy areas when what you really want to do is make your shapes really simple. So putting the window here meant that I wouldn't have to muck around with all sorts of little painted areas. That was another of the problems with the photograph, because you can see it has one of the crossbars in the window is actually one that's going to, let's see, which brush am I on? The crossbar in the window almost goes right through the flowers, so you'd have to deal with that as well as painting around the background. So now I'm going to drop in a little bit of thicker green. The other was mixed with Cobalt Teal Blue and Hansa Yellow Light. And this is just some Sap Green mixed into the same mixture. So I can put some dark in here for maybe some darker tree elements. It's going to make the outline here around these flowers show up a little more. It'll look a little more delicate because I'll have the contrast of that darker color. And I can even get darker and add some Paynes Blue Gray, which has a little bit of bluishness in it, and break up the shapes and the color. And then that'll make it look more like there's trees out here, because I've got a little bit breaking all that up. Now the other thing I can do while I'm doing this portion of it is to make the flower bouquet even lacier. Also, I want that to keep moving, so I will spritz it just a little so it doesn't dry too quickly. I'm going to add another bit of tree up here. My green has kind of moved all over the whole thing, but I'm not too worried about it because it's very light, and I think that'll be fine. But I can also add a little bit of green on the inside, basically openings where some of the flowers I can imagine might be seeing through to the sky and the light greens and things back here. I can even go in with some of the, oops, get the green out of the brush and do a little bit of the Cobalt Teal Blue. And that will just make those look a little bit lacier because I'll have that color underneath and have some openings in the bouquet. Okay, whoever is late because you were gardening, don't make us all jealous. I just got a nasty letter from my HOA because my front yard got attacked by birds this winter, so I've been waiting for two things. One is for spring to come and to be able to fix the damage the birds did, but also waiting for my back to heal. I've been in PT for a couple weeks now because I can't lift bags of mulch, so the HOA wants me to get out there and fix my yard. But we've had solid rain for weeks now. So to heck with them. What yellow is being used? I think I mentioned the, sorry, catching up on comments, the yellow was Hansa Yellow Light. And what size is this? This is an 1/8 of a sheet. So I am at 10.5 by 7. So now I'm going to dry this, just so I can get moving on with the next phase. And I don't want that yellow to keep moving in the sky. All right. It's not completely dry, but the next step I'm going to take is, and I hope I'm getting the same order right that I put on Substack. It would be nice if I did that, wouldn't it be? You guys are allowed to chat in the chat box if you would like. It's already quiet enough in my head. All right, so this is Paynes Blue Gray. And I'm going to see if I can get it dark enough in my first pass that I don't have to go over it again. Because when I went over it again to fix my bloop, that actually ended up really causing me no end of grief. And I am the kind of painter who just seems to never quite get everything right on the first try. I end up having to go over things, and that is never a good part of the plan. Now, the lighting in this is one of the things that attracted me to this photo, because if you look on the left side of the vase, you'll see there's a bright light on the back. And when light goes through water and through glass, but mostly it's just because it's water, it shines a light on the back side of the glass. You would think, if you're thinking about normal highlights and shadows for things, you would be thinking that the highlight would be on the upper side of the glass, not on the back side. But this gives me a chance to talk about that, because when you're painting like water droplets, if you've ever tried that, the highlight is on the back side, because that's the, if you think of it like a bowl, it's catching all that sunlight. And that's what's happening here. So what I want to do while this is still damp, and we'll see if I can succeed. I didn't succeed in my practice painting, but I want to lift a little bit right around that spot so I get that glow. And then I want to finish this before it dries so I don't get any hard edges. And then I'll go back and do a little something to that if I need it. Because what I'd like to do would be, my preference would be to have that little highlight have a glow to it on both ends in the painting, both on the background side and the inside when we get to painting that. We'll see if I remember to do that when we get to that part, because I often have a plan in my head that doesn't always work out perfectly. So that is the background. Now, you might also wonder why I'm doing the background first. And I often will do that, especially if the background seems like there's going to be some parts that may or may not work out great. If I ruin the background, then my whole painting is not going to be right in the long run. And if I ruin the background, then I know that my flowers, because I'll finish the painting anyway, I would know that my flowers are something that will just be practice and I'll be less stressed about them. But if I do the flowers first and everything comes out great, and then I end up putting the background in, I'll be so sweating nervous when I try to put that in. Oh, I waited too long. I waited too long. So we're going to lift that again. I was hoping that would be wet enough that some of the paint would crawl back in, but that didn't happen. You know, I think I need a clean baby wipe to make sure I don't wreck anything here. So I'm gonna lift that again just to add that sparkle in that little spot so I get a little bit of glow coming out from it. And I'm going to dry this before doing the table just because I have that place where I touch the brush and I don't want anything funky to happen to it. Okay, well that's all right. It's not great. It's not what I was hoping for because I messed it up when I touched it again. Should have just left it. And I'm going to do a thicker mixture, and I think I'm going to put in a little bit of transparent red oxide, or if you're using burnt sienna or something, just warm the color up a little bit so it's more like a deep chocolate brown instead. And I'll let them touch at both the left and the right end. So there's just a little highlight under the table. And then get some thick Paynes blue-gray just to drop in here at the bottom. And dry that vertically so that I keep getting the use of gravity. Okay, reading comments, joining in from Chicagoland, etc. Baby wipes, I use the Costco brand, so they're just Kirkland baby wipes. Nothing special, but I don't like the ones with scent on them anyway, just because then it sounds like or smells like I'm changing diapers in the studio. The only thing about the smell of these, if you use them with gouache, it makes a really weird smell. Very strange smell. All right, so that's just about dry. All right, now that's still damp. So just to be sure, I'll just zap all of that a little bit. And then we will get on with the flowers. Can't find the dryers, blow dryers in Europe. The one I'm using, I think this one is by Wow Embossing Powder. Look how old this is. I have like just ink and paint and all kinds of things on it. You can find them, you know, on a lot of websites and stuff. Craft stores will have them. But a lot of people just use a regular hairdryer too. It'll be a little slower, but you're less likely to burn the paper. So if you can't find one, that will help. All right, so now we're going to do the flowers, and you'll notice the flowers are white flowers, the main ones, the bigger flowers. You live in Europe and you have one. Good. That's good to know. Yeah, search for heat tool. That's a good idea. The flowers have more of a grayed out tone on the left side over here, and they get a little more into that bright green. So if I start on the left side and I want a grayed out kind of yellow, I'm going to use yellow ochre. I can use it with a little of another color, so I can add in some regular yellow if it feels like it's not going to be yellow enough. Trying to figure out how thick I want to make it. I'm going to add a little bit of Hansa yellow to it, and then add my color in here. There's not very much pure yellow in this section. I think I want it more watered out. So there's not much white. There's a little bit, and I'm going to leave a little bit around the edges, but even the bottom here is, I'm going to put color in it because this side is away from the sun. And what I love about this photo is that it's got so much of the sun coming through it. So now I'm going to add some yellow to my green and get a really nice yellow-green kind of color. And I'm going to start putting some of that in here, just a little bit of it to touch this. I'll leave a few spots of white in here, a few white flowers, and just as I move across, I'm going to let more and more of the white flowers pop out. But in the bottom section, there's not much of that. And then I'm going to add more green to it to start making it. Maybe I'll even add some hooker's green. That'll make the kind of green that I'm looking for rather than baby poo green. And just get more delicate. Now I didn't get very delicate with the shapes in here. This was just a quick painting that I was trying to make sure that I could actually do this on YouTube after my failure with the tulips. But you can add all kinds of delicacy just with the negative painting. And notice that I'm not trying to paint around a specific flower. I'm just putting in blobs and leaving some blobs of white. Because you don't need individual flowers when you're doing a bouquet or a garden. What I see when people try to do a garden, like somebody had asked me to paint in the suggestions, had asked me to paint a garden and in front of a house, and the one thing I wanted to just say to that was, like, don't pick everything to paint in your painting. You don't need everything all at once in your early paintings. I tried that for many years and would get so frustrated because I ended up with so much focus put on the flowers that the house became a nothing, except I put as much detail in the house as I did in the flowers. And I would have been better off if I had practiced painting flowers and then went and practiced painting the house, instead of trying to do it all at once, because then my brain would get confused as I jumped back and forth between the two. So I want a little more greenishness to this. My color has gotten a little bit more on the golden side. So I want to add a bit of green. This is more hookers with just a lot more quantity of hookers. And I want to drop in just a little bit of it. That'll green up a few of these flowers in the back. But anyway, if you start painting your flowers like this, and you have them really soft, and you're trying to paint something in the background that's supposed to be more important, then leave the flowers soft. Because I've seen people try to paint their flowers in just as much detail as you know, a house in the background or, you know, whatever else is in the scene. And mostly it's because we love everything in the picture. We want all of it to be just as beloved, and it's really hard to do unless you know how to paint both things separately. So my recommendation is always to start small. Start by learning how to paint some of those things individually. Okay, that feels a little more greenish, which is good, and I kind of like the gold that shows up in there too. Now for this, I'm going to use, even though the blue that I see is not Cobalt Teal Blue, I'm going to use it because that's what I used in my sky. And I want to have it in the areas especially that we get big chunks of that color. And just to be sure that I don't lose it, I'm going to let the Cobalt Blue dry before I start putting in anything else, because I want to get those pieces of blue, those little bits of blue in there and make them feel nice and bright. And if I start painting with my other blue that I'm going to use, my French Ultramarine, then I could very easily end up losing that kind of glow that the brighter blue is going to give me. So I want to have just a little bit of a glow of that in here. And then I'm going to dry that so that I don't wreck it. Because when I painted it first, when I painted this in my practice painting, I actually ended up really making a mess of it because my French Ultramarine, or maybe it was Verditer I used. I don't know. I'm going to use French Ultramarine this time. And I'm going to mix the French Ultramarine with the Cobalt Teal Blue just so that I get some relationship between the two colors. And then I want to make sure that I get all the other areas of blue in here. And I'm going to paint right through where all of the darks are, because the darks are going to go over on top of it anyway. But I can start carving out those shapes so that when I get to the darks, I kind of have some idea what I'm doing. So that's one of the reasons why I like doing my light washes first, because then I'm not panicked when I start adding that really dark color on my paper, because I've already got some color on it and I have an idea where I'm headed without committing to it too much, because I can still fix it when I put the black in there. They're really dark colors. So the white I'm going to leave is where the water line is. And then blue in between where the glass will show. I'm going to put some broken blue up in there and soften it a little bit in comparison to everything else. And then finish off the water. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. So I can soften out that edge. And then I'm going to start dropping in my greens even while this blue is still somewhat wet, because I don't mind if they blend into each other. Oops. Oh, I guess that was right. I was paying attention to my lines instead of my paint. Thought I'd made a mistake there. So I've got a bunch of green stems in here. And when stems go through water, they're going to change direction a little bit. So they'll have a little kick out when they get to the end of the water, or when they transfer from one part of the water into the other. And we'll see that more when we get to putting in the really darks. And I'll leave some whites on a couple of those so that they shine in the light. And I think that's pretty good for now. Just gets a nice light coat underneath of it. Sorry you had trouble with the big brush, Judy. It is a little difficult to get used to it, but once you do, it is just so easy to paint with when you get used to like how much to load it with and how big or small you want your strokes to be. Now let's see, do I want to put the berries in here? I can't remember what I did in the order of the on Substack. So I'm going to do this in what order is in my head, and we'll worry about whether Substack was right. Each of the steps can be done in different order. What I'm doing is going back and forth between painting in the flowers and then the vase and the flowers in the vase, so that I end up getting a nice mix between the two, of following my darks, because once I do some darks up here and do some darks down here, then I actually kind of have a better idea of what I'm doing. Now I'm making a mixture of Moonglow with Imperial Purple, because I don't really like the purplishness of these, because the photograph has them as more of a dark kind of purple. Waiting for spring, and you're forecasting 95 degrees in the afternoon. I know. It is amazing how hot it is in some places. And I'm sitting here in a sweatshirt, and I'm chilly because we have rain out there again. I think I'm going to go with my smaller brush. Where is my small brush? There it is. Going to switch down to a number 4. And these little berries have highlights on the right side. So if you have an option to not paint that highlight side, then don't paint the highlight side. But you also don't want necessarily for every berry to be perfect. I'm not trying for that. But even though I sketched in some of them, I'm moving around the berries based on what I painted. So there's some places where I left an opening that I can now add in an extra berry because there's a highlight that I can paint a berry next to. And I can erase all these pencil lines later if I need to, so that nobody worries if I've not painted a berry that I had sketched in. I know some people do get that way. I have had comments about missing a flower or missing a button on a shirt or something when I've painted things, from people who worry that everything has to be perfect, and it doesn't. Now, the person who arranged these flowers did something that I would recommend if you're going to arrange. Yes, this is going to be recorded, so it'll be available as a replay too. If you're going to arrange your flowers and then do a painting of them, do what they did here. They kept all of the purple berry flower things in a couple of areas, and then they had a couple of areas that just had the big white flowers. And it's a lot easier to do a cluster of a particular color or shape of flower than it is to try to mix them in absolutely every spot. So I'm going to add in, a few of them. They've got a few of the berries sprinkled around, but most of them are up in that area. And you can do that with your own arrangement when you put the flowers in your own thing. Let's see. This reminds you of a lesson in the watercolor bouquets class. Well, Sherry, you, my dear, are my reminder to tell everybody that the watercolor bouquets class, which is got stuff that's similar to this, a little simpler of flowers in it. But that class is on sale this week because I figured people will be potentially interested in doing more bouquets after this. So that one is on sale, as well as the fresh flowers. I think it's called fresh flowers. Fresh flowers, fresh florals. I can't remember what I name my own classes. So both of those are available. So if you want to do more flowers, one is a level 3, one is a level 4, and one is $10 off, I think, and the other is $7 off. So good discounts on those. I'm going back to the puddle of the Paynes Blue Gray, and I want to try to do this, as, if at all possible, in one fell swoop. I have always had the trouble of not making my paint thick enough when I wanted it to be nice and thick, and then I end up in all kinds of trouble because then I have to paint over top of it again. And I am hoping that I've got this right for my mixture this time. So I'm going to leave a little bit of, I'm going to let the line of the water be a little bit broken because it doesn't need to be perfect. But now is when we're going to start seeing the kick out, the change in direction when a stem comes through the water. And sometimes it'll kick to the left, sometimes it'll kick to the right, and that sort of thing. But it'll change direction. And even though most people won't notice something like that in your painting, they will appreciate how it looks like that's the water line because of, they're just used to seeing that. They don't know they see it all the time, but people do see those things and they just kind of dismiss it in their brain. But it helps it to look real. So go around here. Now, in order to soften this out so that it goes more toward that white blob, remember we worked on this white blob before, I want to put my paint in here. And I'm even going to do some of that blue right in here at the edge. And I'm going to do the reverse lift from what I did earlier once I give it a second or two to dry. I don't want it to dry all the way. I just want it to be dry enough that I don't lift all the color because I want to leave some of that blue in there. I will feel really happy with this painting if I succeed in just making that glow happen. because it's one of my favorite things about this picture. Now when you're painting the shapes that are in a vase, you can adjust those. I simplify them whenever I can, if at all possible, because nobody's going to be looking at your reference to see if you got it exactly perfect. And we don't need absolutely every bit of those little tiny things in the glass in order to know that it's glass. So now I'm having a little more success in what I was trying to do before, which is to paint a bit more of the color back in. I just had left the other one too long to dry, because this is going to try to keep crawling into that damp area, and I can just kind of pull at it so that I get that little glow. And there's a few areas I want to make sure I get good and dark. Up here where I got so much water in there that I might be losing my nice darks. So add a little more in there. And now that I let this part dry a bit, I'm just going to paint water in here so I get soft edges for these shapes. Yay! Yes, that is called a refraction. Oh, I should put the 30 days to more confident watercolor sketching class on sale too, shouldn't I? Now I was successful in getting that little glow. It's a little more glow than I needed, so if I did want to get rid of that, I could paint over this whole section again, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it be, but I do want to add in a little more darkness into some of these because that water is going to have more value in it. So let's see which brush. I'm going to use a little bit of the blue, and I already had my Paynes blue gray mix in my brush. So I'm going to use a thin wash of it in order to add just a little more value into the water. Now you can add extra shapes in here. You can do all kinds of things if you want. But I want to just get some soft edges. So using a clean brush, I'm going to go around the outside here. And then get my hairdryer off the floor where I dropped it. But look at me, I could bend down now, which recently I couldn't do. All praise to physical therapy. I still have a good ways to go, but I can now bend down and pick up something I've dropped on the floor. Woohoo! So yes, I will add the 30 days to more confident watercolor sketching class to the sale as soon as we're done with this. So that's a course where if you just don't know what to paint and you want to sketch something every day, do small paintings, they're like postcard size paintings, then I can definitely recommend that as one to try. Most people have really loved it. It's lots and lots of flowers, gardens, baskets. Lots of it is that kind of imagery. But mostly it's just an excuse to get you painting every day. Because it's a 30-day long class. You don't have to get it done in 30 days. But I will add that to the sale if you're interested in taking that one. That one is more of a level 2 class. The other two, I think, are a level 3 and a level 4 for the watercolor bouquets and the fresh florals, or fresh flowers, whatever I called it. I think I went back and forth on the name so many times that half the time I mention it by its incorrect name. So I'm using this thin green mix to just add a few leaves in here in a lighter color. And all of the stems that are going to be on this side are going to be in this color. And then I'm going to use a darker green for the stems on the other side. That's going to help with that light that goes over the entire picture. So I'm using this color for a couple of leaves as well as some stems. This brush is my inlaid liner brush, and I love it because I get a little control out of it, but I also don't get all the control that I might want out of it. And it makes me not make like little pencil perfect lines, because if you end up holding your brush down here and you're making pencil perfect lines, you might as well just draw it in pencil. Why are you painting? So letting the lines stay a little bit looser makes me happier with my painting in the long run, rather than trying to, you know, draw in every stem and make a stem that goes to every single berry. The impression of what you're painting is what you're looking for, as opposed to the perfection of getting every stem in there. But this bouquet does have quite the cacophony in it of little things. I'm going to put a little more in here. That's not going to really show up very much. It's not dark yet, so I'm going to add some sap green and a little bit of the Paynes blue gray to make a darker green. So I can now paint in the dark stems, and I can leave small highlights because I've already got those painted in the lighter green. And if you end up with any like watermarks in the water section, you can just throw a stem in there. Nobody's going to know if it was a stem that was repairing something else that didn't work, or if it's supposed to be a stem leading to which branch. All right, so as we get to this side, there's going to be one of the darker stems out here, and we'll have some stems at the top, but more light's going to get through. So I'm going to leave more of the lighter green showing over here than I did on the other side. I think I want some green in this one. And some of these stems could be brown as well, but I just didn't want to introduce a brown into the painting at this point. And I'm going to dry this section up here before I add the dark green, just so I don't because I don't want to end up bleeding into that. Now, right where this, the top of the vase is, there's very, very little that you can see of the top of the vase. So I'm going to go almost entirely up to it. On my other painting, I had left, I think, too much of that white highlight showing, because that's on this side of the vase. There's no reason that there would be that much light hitting it. But I wanted to leave just enough that I end up getting a little tiny bit of definition between the vase and the flowers. But now I can start painting in larger and darker leaves. And I didn't like how dark mine got in my practice painting, which is another reason that we should all do a practice painting, because I used too much dark when I was doing these final stems. See something going on in the chat. Da, da, da. Great class, good recommendations. Thank you for that. If you ever go to my website and you're looking at classes and wondering, I wonder if this is a good class, look at the reviews, because I've been trying to encourage people to leave reviews on classes they've taken so that more people can see them and you'll know whether or not it's a class for you, because you'll hear about the kind of things they learned, or if they say, you know, this was a little hard for me as a new painter, then you'll know maybe you want to wait longer before you take that one, and that sort of stuff. So I assign things with a level, but sometimes it's better to just hear it in some normal person's voice. And you're welcome to leave reviews on courses you've taken as well. And not just courses from me. I encourage people leaving reviews for all kinds of classes, because that is how people get the endorsement of someone who's not the person trying to sell you the class. Oh, you know what I forgot? I didn't add the little purple flowers. There's some purple flowers out here, so I still have time to do that. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my purple really thin and just put in a few little spots of it. Because I don't know if there's that much purple left in all the other flower sections. You know, I'm not going to put any in over there. I might just pop in a little bit right here, because it's kind of a fun color to add. And then lift off some of it so it doesn't end up being really strong. And then remember to dry it. So that when I add my dark branches, I don't end up bleeding them all over the place. So I'm going to let this get a little bit darker than it is, because I've got some bigger stems that will be coming down here that will need to be a little darker. And I can put some of them behind leaves, like I can leave that leaf here by adding some dark before it and above it, in order to get some dimension in this instead of looking like just a cacophony. Because on my practice painting I ended up with a cacophony. Again, I can paint around a leaf and just let those couple leaves pop out in front of these stems. And this one as well. This gives me a chance to put in those pops of dark, which I like in contrast to the vase that has so much dark, but I had just put too much of it in my practice painting. And by the way, I will put both of these in my shop. So if you need an Easter gift for your mama, you can pick up one of these two paintings. to put in her Easter basket. Or Mother's Day is also coming. My mother often got art from me for Mother's Day when she was alive, and a lot of it ended up going to my sister when Mom passed away. And my sister said, you know, you don't need to send me any more paintings because I now have Mom's paintings too. Which just kind of makes me laugh. Part of me thinks, you know, should I just get all those paintings back from her so that I can sell them to somebody who's going to actually love them? Because I have a feeling if I went to my sister's house, all those paintings might be in a stack in the basement. She puts up some of my work, but not a lot. All right, now I have like two, I don't know what that is, horns in the middle of my vase. So I want to break those up. Always squint at your stems to see if you have anything weird developing. Because it's hard to know sometimes if something odd came about. All right, I think that's pretty good. Now the vase in the photo does have a little more dark in here, so I'm going to go in with just a shot of the very dark at the back side of the vase. I just don't want as much, and I'll show you how much there had been in my practice painting. I really went overboard with it because I was just doing it quick, and I didn't get nearly as much detail as I did in this one, which I kind of like a little bit better. All right, I think that is about it. Now what I ended up doing was going over the outside here because I had some drips when I did my practice painting. If you have that happen, just go over the whole thing. Don't try to do what I did, which was to put an extra little bit of that around there. I don't think it worked out as well as it would have if I had done otherwise. But the one thing I can do is add in a little bit of the frame. Maybe I'll do that with the bluish green here. Oops, dog hair. Condiment. And I'll let that fade. So I get a little bit of that. If you want to add a little more line work to it, you can, but keep the main thing, and that is the flowers as opposed to all this other stuff around it. Same thing if you end up getting some kind of a mess up in your background, then you can just kind of leave that. People aren't going to worry about it. They're going to be looking at the flowers. But what you can also do, I'll do one more little tip here. If, like right now, I've got a little bit of a splooge of paint that happened there, I can still lift paint. If I decide I don't like that dark mark and I want to lighten it, I can use a clean baby wipe and just very gently brush across the surface. And here I've got a little bit of a watermark. I can just make it not as important by lifting some off. Now be careful, because if you mess it up more, you could end up more unhappy with your new result. But you can hide little things by just using a baby wipe to clean that up just a tidge. But anyway, I'm pretty satisfied with that. It shall be in the store in the next hour or so if anybody wants to race for it. I sold my my abstract wash and ink piece that I did here on YouTube like within minutes of the video going out. So if either of these is what you would want, then I would recommend keeping an eyeball on my my Sandy Allnuck Fine Art website. So there's things to be said for either one of these. You know, I think they're, you know, they're probably equal in how they came out. But you can see the little differences that it can make, whether you choose a different color, whether you use a different intensity of color. And there's some things I can do, like this one. I love that little pop of blue down here. I can add in a pop of blue still in this and brighten that. So, I mean, you can go around in your painting and find other things to improve, especially when you compare it to a practice painting you've already done. So that already makes me happier to have a little more blue down there. All right, thank you everyone for joining me for this. I am going to go add the 30 Days to More Confident Watercolor Sketching class to the sale page, and I'll go put these in the shop. And that's about it for today. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited so many people came, and I will see you guys next week. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to do next week. I don't think I've decided yet on this channel, but next Friday on the 27th, which is my actual birthday, I will be live just like this on Sandy Draws, my other channel. So join me over there. That one's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific. So I think it's, what is that, 4 o'clock Eastern time? So I'll be doing some drawing there. Thank you. I'll see you guys later. And now I have to figure out how to end my broadcast in this software. I'm not really sure how to do that quite yet. Oh, goodness. Let me see. Oh, there is a button that says end broadcast. So, bye.